and I asked him, I said, I shouldn't take a rocket scientist to make a sweetener that doesn't blind or kill you, because, even as they come out with more sweeteners like Splenda, it's chlorinated sugar. It's like drinking bleach. And sulfate potassium also cause cancer and leukemia. So he said I could do that, and he made something called Just Like Sugar. And the first thing that Dr. Blaylock said was, wait a minute, let's have this analyzed. So it was analyzed, and it was nothing but chicory food that's been used for 70 years to improve the health of diabetics. And it's got orange peel and vitamin C from organic oranges and calcium, and that's all. And it's really been helping diabetics. And then he went on to make other things, and I told him, I said, why don't you make some gum, because now they put aspartame in all the gum, and it's one of the worst products, Dr. Roberts says, because it works like nitroglycerin under the tongue, goes through the saliva straight to the brain. And so that's what it's making now. He's making, you can pick up hot chocolate and see 75 chemicals in it, but he's making one that just has the organic chocolate and the vanilla bean. And he's made drinks for the schools so the children can get out of their drinking these terrible drinks called Fiber Up. And he makes the container now. All the corn, like you say, is genetically engineered in the United States. But this is corn grown in the Amazon rainforest, and they make the bottle out of it so it's biodegradable, and all you got to do is throw it out to your garden, and make things grow. So, and Just Like Sugar is now in Whole Foods or online. So that's one good thing that has been done, because as we've been warning people off all these poisons, they'll say, well, what do I use? What do I use? And so there's an alternative of something that has been proven to be safe, and since people have been using it, I've never received a complaint.
What about stevia?
Stevia is okay if it is doesn't have other things in it, if it's pure and green. Now, Dr. Blaylock says it causes hypoglycemia, but basically, stevia by itself is okay. But for instance, when the Diet Coke drinks were going down, and here Coke says, "We hear you. We're going to make a product of stevia." Well, what they did, they just have to have chemicals. They can't leave a good thing to itself. And so they made Truvia that actually is sweetened by erythritol that just happens to have an ingredient of stevia in it. And because of all the chemicals, people are complaining about that too. So, if the plain stevia by itself is just fine. But, now, for instance, in Brazil, they add aspartame to the stevia. So you have to worry about that. In other words, today you have to read labels. You simply cannot just take it for granted. Here's a bottle of stevia and it's okay. You got to look at it and see what else they put in it. They have to mess up a good thing, So that's some good news that these people are trying to go back to nature and make some safe things. And they've made candy and cookies, even gluten-free cookies that taste like regular cookies, and they have managed to make something natural to take the place of fructose, so that they can have something in soda that people like that is just natural, and has no chemicals in it. So they're doing very, very well. They just made a movie of it. It's probably on their website. Just like sugarinc.com tells the whole story. So at least we do have, something that people can use. And another problem when they make things like Truvia and more chemicals is that once somebody's used aspartame, they're usually chemically hypersensitive for life because it's so poisonous. So like Dr. Bowen says, if you go from aspartame to Splenda, he says you're going to maintain the reactions to aspartame and pick up those in Splenda. And I think that's what's happening with the Truvia. You know, they've been using poison and to get into more chemicals, and they react. And so you have to go back to basics. And, you know, I tell people, they keep saying, well, how can we avoid it? How can we avoid it? And I said, it's very hard. You have to give up processed foods. It's the only way to avoid it. And, you know, I know it takes more time. Stay away from the fast food people. But it is hard. But that's the only way to be sure that you've avoided this poison.
What about my idea of the self-sufficient family farms? I just talked to somebody in North Dakota, and North Dakota is covered by farms. They don't have any debt. They've got their own state bank, and it sounds like a perfect place for my whole concept of Liberty Villages. But there's a drawback to Liberty Villages, Betty. It means people living in close proximity to each other and working together. And I think that's the hardest thing for Americans right now. They've isolated us in our living rooms. They've set us in front of TV sets. They've programmed us. Every other commercial is for a drug company.
Yeah, and do you notice that when they're doing this, they come out and say, now it can cause death, and it can cause heart attacks and strokes, and they say it with a smile. And
Russian. You got the same thing with Russian roulette, you know.
Yeah, it is Russian roulette.
I don't want to ban guns to keep people from putting one to their head and pulling the trigger. And matter of fact, I feel the same way about the drugs. You want to kill yourself, go sit in that corner, man, shoot up your heroin, and you know, be sure and leave a deposit so we can pick up your body. Yeah. You know, why pay $50,000 a year to put them in a prison somewhere? And feed them for a year. My God, you know, I don't think that's any good sense at all.
Well, it's a sad time in our country, and I mean, when as I say, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've been trying, you know, just get aspartame off the market, because I'm getting older too, and I can't take on all the other things. However, it is such Russian roulette, like I said. People are asking, well, this is poisonous, and this is poisonous, and just like MSG, aspartame has an additive and synergistic effect with it. So you just have to educate people, don't do this, and don't do this, and don't mix it with this, you know. So people today have to take some responsibility for what they put in their mouth, and they have to do their own research, because no longer is the food supply safe anymore. And that's, you know, you just can't go in the grocery store and fill up your cart.
Well, you know, I've got a film up on my site, and I'll leave that up today, from a guest, Jay Wiedner, I had on yesterday, and he's talking to he was discussing what Cliff High predicted for 2012. Cliff High is the guy that has the web bots that go in there and try to find any related story and gather information, and they process that, and they get predictions about what's going to happen in the future. And he says that we're coming in for a worldwide revolution. Now the problem that we're discussing, the problem that you pointed out, isn't limited to the American people. The chemtrails are happening all over the world, genetically modified. We've got some countries that are standing up against it. We've got some people in foreign countries that are saying, hey, we don't want any aspartame. We don't spray over our countries. But we are giving foreign aid to 150 countries, and if they're happy with the whole New World Order plan to reduce the population, they get funded by American taxpayers.
Well, I know how bad it is. I wish I could just get aspartame off the market and do one last thing, but just as you're doing that, they're trying to get advertising approved. Even another one. They've got neotame, and advertame is the same neurotoxic and cytotoxic amino acids, and then they've got vanillin, and vanillin many times is made with aspartame or some sweetener, and on Mark Gold's website, the Aspartame Toxicity Center, they've already tested this and found it interacts, and they're still pushing it. And of course, I've lectured in other parts of the world, and you go to New Zealand and you see all the kids that are bipolar because you know about the depletion of serotonin causing psychiatric and behavioral problems, and our children being medicated instead of educated. And it's a tragic thing. You see the problems all over the world, no matter where you are. And I was going to the VA hospital one day. I thought my brother was dying, and, you know, Agent Orange was bad enough, and then he got on aspartame. They were trying to get him off of it. And I was talking to so many physicians and giving them records, and, you know, they would come back and say, you know how many people we could have saved if we had this information. And, you know, it's so common, the problems. I walked into a room and saw this woman drinking Diet Coke, and I've been talking all day, and I was just kind of tired, and I just looked at her and said, MS or lupus? And she said lupus. In other words, that's just how epidemic these problems are becoming. And just wherever you go, you know, and if I could just get this off the market. But, you know, first of all, I filed a citizen's petition for ban way back in 2002, and they only have 180 days to answer. They ignored it and sent me a note they had more important things to do. And then I filed an amendment with an imminent health hazard in 2007, which is supposed to be answered in a week or 10 days. And then finally somebody calls from the FDA, tell me it's not going to happen. And I said, well, you know, people are sick and dying everywhere. And he had the audacity to say to me that, so what? We need you to populate. That's what the FDA said. So, you know, how do you fight these people, you know, that are trying so hard to harm the population?
Well, they've got immunity because it's their job. You know, that's why people attack me. It's why people want to tell you I'm racist. I'm a radical. I'm a conspiracy theorist. Oh, he thinks they want to kill the American people. He thinks the government wants to kill the American people. I think a world government wants to kill the American middle class.
Yeah.
They don't like our lifestyle.
Very obvious what they're trying to do. Yeah.
They don't like our lifestyle, and now we've got the internet. Without the internet, they wouldn't be able to keep track of us the way they do. They wouldn't be able to milk our credit cards and let us pay for our gas with our nice little debit cards. But it also gives us the ability to talk to one another and compare notes. And it's happening. I think more and more people are waking up to this fact.
Well, I wish more people would get involved. You know, we have operations now in 43 countries. And so I want to tell your listeners that they can help. They can email me at BettyM19@BaronSpring.com, and I'll send them the Aspartame Resource Guide. And it tells how the whole history, how Don Rumsfeld got it on the market, and it gives you the resources of movies and books. You know, they made a movie of this, Sweet Misery of Poison World, and tells you how to get it out of your state, what's safe, what's not safe. And so, and they can forward it to other people. You know, they just save one life a day. That's the way we've been doing it all these years, is that just keep forwarding the information. And the doctors have written reports on just about, you know, everything that it does. Aspartame in pregnancy, aspartame in cardiac problems, aspartame in fibromyalgia, all the different things that it causes, so that, you know, their doctors will have reports and understand the mechanism by which it causes the problems. So they, you know, that's what we try to do, is get people involved so that they can help their family and their neighbors. And even me, here I am, the world founder of all this, and been doing it day and night for 20 years, so obviously I tell my family. But, you know, about 15 years ago, my husband's cousin came to Atlanta and said, look, I'm on my way to Florida, and I just wanted to stop and let you know that William Reed's dying, or maybe he's already dead. And I said, wait a minute, Mary Lee, you know, why is William dying? What's the matter with it? He says, well, he's having 6 or 8 seizures a day, and they don't think he'll live through the day. And I said, is he on NutraSweet? And they said, yes. I said, is he having MS symptoms, going blind, and all these things? She said, yes. So I told her, I said, call him. And so she said, well, he might be dead. I said, Mary Lee, call him. And she's talking to him. She says, William, Betty said you didn't have to die. Just get off NutraSweet. And sure enough, within about 48 hours, all the seizures stopped. And my husband, a few months ago, went to Michigan to visit him 15 years later, and he was fine because we got him off of it and just literally yanked him out of the jaws of death. And so this is, what it's going to take. One of our activists, Miss Dad, and I felt so sorry for her, she had these, she worked in one of these houses where they had a bunch of patients, and they were all aspartame victims, and they were seizure victims, and they fired her because she told them that that's what was giving them the seizures. And she did everything possible, and she said eventually they didn't know who they were. You had to sort of lead them around. They were just like zombies, and that the company, even being told that this is what was doing it, refused. So many people try to help so hard, and finally, the other day she died, and I thought it was so sad. She had devoted her life to trying to, yank these people from the jaw of death. They were giving them Crystal Light, Diet Coke, and they didn't know anything. They just sit there and had more seizures during the day.
I mean, doesn't the aspartame really contribute to obesity?
Oh, yes, and there's been so many studies. Sharon Fowler did one in 2005, and it was on like 8 years of epidemiological data linking obesity to diet drinks, and she just recently did another one, and we've known it for 30 years. I mean, it's in the congressional record, which we have on file, Wortman's affidavit that aspartame makes you crave carbohydrates, so you gain weight. And then you have to think of that Taco study, which shows that most toxicity is in the liver, but substantial amounts in the adipose tissue are the fat cells. And you see people walking down the street with big hips and thighs. If they're drinking, diet products or aspartame, they could, could be formaldehyde. So, and Dr. Roberts even wrote in his book on the pre-embalming, he says, people of the Jewish faith don't allow embalming. They don't, and he says, and they're getting embalmed anyway. And so you've got that aspect of it too. And then another study came out showing that aspartame raises fasting blood sugars. And of course we've known that. They did a study, I guess it was a couple of years ago. I just couldn't believe it. They didn't know what was happening to diabetics, and so they were trying because, for instance, the insulin didn't help them, so they raised the insulin, and probably most of them were using aspartame. And since it interacts with insulin, and it causes, all these cardiac problems, all it did was make things worse, and they had to stop the study because the diabetics were having heart attacks and dying.
Let me take a call here for a moment, Betty. Betty Martini is my guest today, and I believe I got Sharon on the line. Hello. Hello, is this Sharon? 91.
This is Ann.
Yes, 918.
Yeah, this is Ann.
Ann, hey Ann, how are you?
Hi, fine, thanks. I'm glad you have Betty on. I wanted more information on aspartame and some of the other poisons. I have a couple things. When we were kids, we would take a Coke and put it in a glass, pour it in a glass, and then put a copper penny in it, and then in a few hours, the penny would be eaten up by the Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And on the aspartame helping to cause obesity, the thing is that when your tongue gets a sweet taste, even though it's an artificial sweetener, then your brain signals your liver to stop burning fat.
Well, it does affect the liver a great deal. In fact, if you could just Google aspartame makes you fatter, and Dr. Cabot, who's a liver doctor, explains all that and the effects, and also causes steatohepatitis.
Yeah, and so then, and of course, the MSG is supposed to enhance the flavor of things, but it is also an excitotoxin, and that's what farmers use to fatten their hogs, because they'll eat more.
Well, let me just warn you about one other thing, too, you need to know about. Are you familiar with Cinemax? SYNMO?
No.
Okay, it's another flavor enhancer, and the FDA has said that it could be under artificial flavors, and they don't have to label it. So Robert Cohen went and read the patent, and it's actually made with aborted fetal cells. And the companies involved are Coke, and it's Pepsi. They're putting it in sucralose or Splenda, which is bad enough as it is. And
I don't take any of that stuff.
Yeah, and Heinz. So if you go in a restaurant, you can't use ketchup or mustard if they have Heinz because they've got Cinemax in it, and they won't even label it. That's why I said you simply have to go back to scratch and not use processed foods.
Yes, that would help. Well, diabetics can cure their diabetes if they just go to uncooked and unprocessed foods, and no meat, and no fast foods, no coffee, tea, or sodas.
I know Dr. Whitaker wrote a book reversing diabetes, explaining how easy it is to do that.
Yes, I had to babysit for a lady that was the president. Or CEO rather of the Oklahoma Diabetes Association, and I didn't know all these things when I was babysitting for her, their first baby. So, but I can sure call them up and call her up and talk to her about it. But this is something that is in the protocols. About poisoning the people, and they won't know. Give them candy with the sweetener in them, and make them think it's okay for them,
That's in the protocols, huh?
Yes.
I have that linked on my site. That may be why I'm blocked in every library around the country.
Not in mine.
You can get Free American in your library?
Yes.
All right. It's under the protocols are in my archives page, and everybody should read it. If you're Jewish, I guess you're screaming right now, "Oh, that's a forgery, don't you?" What's a forgery? Oh yeah, the exact copy of the original. And It don't matter who wrote it because they're dead now. What matters is who's using it. And they talking about poisoning their hosts, don't they? Or their slaves. We're actually slaves, and we don't we got to keep the white populations down. So we bought into the birth control, and the Muslims and the Mexicans, they haven't bought in there. So we're becoming the minority right now. And it's like all of these commercials are targeted at us. Well, you need this kind of drug, you need this kind of food, you need this kind of hamburgers, you need this kind of sweeteners.
I have lost 75 pounds in the last 10, 11 months by simply not eating any fried foods, mostly very little prepared foods, and getting fresh frozen vegetables and having a serving every three times a day. And I have a little cooker. I don't like I said, I don't fry anything. And I believe it's because of having smaller meals and whole foods, fresh vegetables, and sometimes frozen vegetables, and fresh fruit of different kinds. And of course I wash them. But
you're not drinking raw milk too. They'll come in and bust you for having raw milk, buying raw milk, or making raw milk.
I used to have a dairy I could go to here in town. Well,
all right, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I got to close this out here. We're out of time.
Okay.
And thank you for calling in, dear. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Clay, for your info.
Okay,
God bless you both.
Thank you, dear. Okay, folks, freeamerican.com has got links to all of Betty's sites and how to get her information. And Betty, I applaud